So I tried to do this video earlier, and my daughter would not let me. She just kept fussing. She'd be fine for 2 minutes and then just scream. So trying this again while she's asleep. And hopefully she stays asleep so I can actually do this time. So the other day I was at my breastfeeding mom support group thing, and there were several women there who were much newer moms. I mean, like, okay, I'm still technically like a new mom because my daughter's 5 months and 3 days, so it still counts as a new mom. But I also do have a fair amount of experience with babies, just not with like breastfeeding and that kind of stuff because I was a nanny for so many years. But as far as breastfeeding goes, I'm definitely still newer to this. But these moms were like, their babies were like 2 weeks old, that sort of thing. So even newer than I am. And several of them were having supply issues or latch issues or what have you. And we have pretty much run the gamut on all of that. So I thought I would do this video to just share my experience with it and my tips and my warnings, I guess, because there were a couple of things that I did wrong in the beginning, not realizing. I took some bad advice, or I tried to do things in a slightly easier way that I thought would still work, but it wouldn't. So I thought I would make a video and let you all learn from my experience. So we started out with some bad problems. So labor and delivery was really hard. Well, labor, I mean, it was just normal labor, but delivery was really hard. We almost lost her. And so I didn't get that golden hour, I think they call it. I think it was about 15 to 20 minutes after she was born, but I don't know because to me it felt like years. They finally put her on me, but they couldn't like take her out and put her right on my chest like I really wanted because they had to put her on the warmer and get her breathing and all of that because she was not doing well. So like I said, it felt like about 4 years, but for all I know, it was 2 minutes. I don't actually know. And then they put her on me, and I was able to keep her for, I think, probably about a half hour. And then they needed to kind of check her again, make sure everything was okay, that sort of thing. So I didn't get that golden hour, but I did get some time with her skin to skin, but I didn't really get to nurse her or anything in the beginning. And then because I had gestational diabetes, we had all sorts of problems feeding. So we had to check her blood sugar every 2 hours, which was oh so fun, pricking the heel of my newborn baby every 2 hours. That was great. Let me just tell you that right now. It was a wonderful experience. But we couldn't feed her until we had checked her blood sugar, because obviously if you fed her and then checked her blood sugar, her sugar number is going to be different, so you don't know what's accurate. And because there's only so many nurses for so many patients, and we happened to be born at a really busy time. I mean, the night that my daughter was born, the doctor that delivered her was running herself ragged. Oh my God, it was so crazy. There were so many, like, I don't think there was an empty room in the entire maternity ward. It was crazy. So there's only so many nurses for that. And so that means that they didn't entirely stick exactly to 2 hours, which I get. It's frustrating when your baby is upset because she's hungry and you can't feed her. You're not allowed to feed her and they're just taking forever. And I get it, but it's very frustrating. But it also doesn't help because then she was screaming and screaming and screaming and really worked up. But we also couldn't nurse her first. I had to wait 2 hours. I couldn't nurse her on demand. And I had to formula feed her first. So they would take her blood sugar. I would give her I think it was a 2-ounce bottle. I don't remember. But it was a bottle of formula that had like a specific number of calories that was important to her blood sugar numbers. So it had a certain number of calories. And then if she was wanting to, able to, I could then nurse her after the bottle. But because she gets so upset between the fact that she's extra hungry, well, you have to wait to feed her, and then they prick her, so she's in pain, so she's screaming, and then all the effort of actually drinking the bottle, she would usually fall asleep by the end of the bottle. So then she wasn't nursing. And since she wasn't nursing, my body was like, oh, okay, you don't need milk. And I'm like, no, I do. So I didn't get to pump really for the first few days either because they wanted me latching and not pumping, and I don't really understand why. So I think next time, if this happens again, I'm going to be fighting for, no, let me pump too. Which I think that was a big mistake on my part, but I'm new to this. I didn't know. So that's something that I would do next time is really stand up for myself as far as that and my baby, and say, no, I'm going to pump so that I can get my milk, and that's going to happen. Another thing is you need to get the right size. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's flang or flange or go to sleep, my love. There you go. I don't know how to pronounce it, but the part that actually goes on your boob. I guess a lot of people are missized. Even by like trained lactation consultants, sometimes will missize you. I was actually missized. I was told I was a 24 millimeter, and about a month and a half ago, I talked to a woman who was in a Facebook group, and she comes highly recommended. She does actual, like, you send her pictures of you wearing your pump before you pump, and she will tell you, hi kiddo. Apparently we will. If I put a boobie in your mouth, will you go back to sleep so that Mommy can finish her video? Oh, there you go. Go back to sleep. So anyway, so you send her pictures of you and your pump before you pump, and she will tell you if you need to go up a size, down a size, if you're good, like, etc. And when I sent her mine, she messaged me back. She's like, no, you're not a 24, you're a 19. And at first I was like, I can't be a 19. Like, that's really small. But okay, she comes really highly recommended. And so I was like, okay, I'll try it. I mean, worst case scenario, if it doesn't fit right, I can return it, right? Sure. So I did, and that helped incredibly. It helped with the pain. There was no longer pain with pumping, and it helped with my supply. So that's a big one. Make sure you have the right size, and get second opinions if you need to, because apparently some lactation consultants aren't trained as well as they should be in sizing. So there's that. So she had a lip and tongue tie. So she also had trouble latching, which I guess lip and tongue ties are really underdiagnosed, because a lot of lactation consultants they don't know how to look for it. Like, they do, but they're not, like, that's not their specialty. Their specialty is lactation, not, lip and tongue ties. Excuse me, just trying to help the baby here. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Stay asleep. You're good. Okay. That's not their job, that's not what they do. So if your baby is having trouble latching, and especially if it hurts a lot, like, yes, it's supposed to hurt, like, because you're raw and everything, but it's not supposed to hurt. It's not supposed to feel like it's pinching. If it feels like they're pinching your nipples, that usually means there's a tie, and you should see someone about it, a pediatrician or a specialist. I don't remember what kind of specialist it would be, but a specialist. My daughter had lip and tongue ties, and our specialist tried to talk us out of getting it fixed. I'm really not sure why, but because I have several friends and family members who have dealt with lip and or tongue ties, I knew that no, I needed to push back and be like, no, you're gonna do this. Just clip her ties. It's fine. It was a 2-minute procedure. I mean, I think she was out of my room for all of 15 minutes, and that includes the time it took them to take her from the room to the, procedure room or wherever they do it. So it's really easy. I don't know why this guy didn't want to do it, but he fought me on it, and I was like, no, you're doing this. And it improved everything so much. So we did manage to get that done before we actually left the hospital, and I think that that was a huge help for us. If we hadn't have gotten it done so quickly, we probably would not be where we are right now. We would probably still be rather far behind. She's waking up. What? You want to see the camera? All right, mommy, cover up a second. Say good morning, world. You're so cute, so I'll let everybody look at you for a minute. Okay. Sorry. She's adorable, so I figured you'd want to see her. So, make sure that you get it fixed. It can cause dental problems. It can cause problems with nursing. It can cause, there's so many reasons to get a lip and tongue tie cut. Just get it done. Don't let them push you around. I don't know why they do. It seems really stupid. If that's literally your job, why would you not want to do it? But yeah, I guess people are just stupid. Which is not really a big surprise. So, we did get that fixed before the hospital, and then before we left the hospital, and then the lactation consultant came in to make sure I knew how to do everything, and then to also inspect her latch and make sure that she was now doing better and everything. And they said that she had an amazing latch. She was great, which was very nice. I didn't have to teach her how to latch at that point. That was so much easier because I've read some horror stories. But then I still was having my supply issues because, well, I didn't really get to nurse for 3 or 4 days right after she was born. And we had to supplement with formula and yada, yada, yada. So we were giving her mostly formula. No, you cannot have my phone. So we were mostly giving her formula at that point, and I was trying to up my supply because I wanted to nurse, and I like to call it determination and passionate determination. And most of the people around me, like my husband, like to call it stubborn. But I just feel like that's really negative. Because it is. I am a very stubborn person. but I was very determined. I wanted to nurse my baby. It's better for her health-wise, yes. And I have nothing against formula-fed babies. I was a formula-fed baby. My two brothers were formula-fed babies. Like, I have nothing against formula. It's better for her, and my family's medical history runs the gamut, so I'd like to give her every possible leg up that I can. But I also, the bigger reason was just, I tried to have her for 7 years, and I've been dreaming of her for 25 years. So I really wanted to have every little bit of bond I can with her. And I know that breastfeeding is a really special bond, so I wanted to do that. So I was very determined. And I think that that is a key factor. As hard as it was, and there were a lot of days where I just spent the whole day crying because I was at a loss. I was convinced it would never happen. And it was really, really hard. And that's really hard for me to admit. But if it helps somebody else, then so be it. But I really feel like the fact that I was so stubborn and determined is the reason that I am where I am today with my daughter. Because you don't get a lot of support. I am lucky. My husband is an incredible support for me in all ways. That's the reason I married him. But especially with my breastfeeding, he like has fully supported it the entire time. And anytime I felt like he wasn't being supportive, he was trying to be, he just didn't know how to be. And as soon as we talked about it, it was like a 5-minute conversation. And then he was like, oh, you need this, not that. Okay. And then he adjusted and it was fine. So seriously, I don't know what your partners are like if you have a partner. But if your partner isn't like that, that's going to be a big hindrance. So find someone, preferably a partner, but a sister, a best friend, a mom, I don't care. Someone who will be your steadfast rock in this, because that is a huge help. You need someone that when you go to them and you're bawling your eyes out, I don't think I can do this, my body's just not working properly, like blah blah blah, and you're just freaking out, they look at you and say, listen, if you end up having to supplement with formula the whole time, that's okay, but I know this is important to you, so anything you need to help you do this, I will help you. And then they hold you and they comfort you and they just love you and support you and just be there for you, because you really need that. You need at least one person. I have other people in my life that are supportive too, but my husband has been everything for support, because he's the one that's here all the time too, but so that helps. But I feel like a lot of women give up because it is hard. It's incredibly hard, and they don't have any support, and that makes it even harder. And like I've known a few women that I feel like if they had stuck it out, they probably could have done it. And it makes me sad because I know that they were disappointed. I know that was something that was important to them, and they were disappointed. And honestly, for me, that just made me work harder, because I didn't want to be disappointed. I'm one of those people that if I have tried everything and have not succeeded, okay, I can be okay with that. But if I have not tried everything, I will be kicking myself in the ass for the rest of my life. So I wanted to be sure that I had been as, well, stubborn as possible and tried everything I possibly could before I gave up. I refused. I refused to give up. And I understand that that's not how everybody is. So if you can't try everything, I totally understand, and that is totally okay. But for me personally, I needed to try everything before I could give up. And it worked out because I didn't have to give up. So we were supplementing with formula. So what we were doing was what I decided to do after we didn't have to check her blood anymore. We weren't allowed to leave the hospital until her blood was fine. So what I did at that point was I would nurse on demand. And so, yeah, I know, you know what that word is, huh? So anytime she showed any indication of wanting to nurse, even if it was just looking at me in a way that I was kind of like, I think you're hungry, I would latch her. Because the more you latch, the more your body says, oh, okay, we should do this. Obviously, removing the milk from the breast is the best way, but latching helps as well. So I did that constantly. I mean, I basically had her attached to my boob 24/7. But what I would do is so she would get upset because she's used to the bottles, and the bottles just kind of come out quick and easy, and they don't really have to do any work for it, and it's just how that works. So what I did was I would latch her until she got upset, because she would get upset that it wasn't just coming out, that she had to actually work for it. And so I would latch her until she got upset. And once she got so upset she couldn't latch anymore, I would hand her over to my husband, and he would give her a bottle of formula. Luckily, he was home for his boss is amazing and gave him an entire month of paid paternity leave. So I had him at my beck and call for an entire month to be able to do some of these things that I'm going to say. So if you don't have that kind of help, some of these tips might be a little hard for you. So if you can get beck and call help for the first at least couple of weeks, that will help immensely in a lot of ways, but especially if you're having supply issues. But anyway, that was a side note, sorry. So I would latch her as long as I could, hand her over to Daddy to formula feed her. He would get the bottle ready while I'm trying to latch her, and then he would feed her. And while he's feeding her, I would pump, so that at least my body is removing the milk and getting that signal to replace the milk. So pumping isn't as efficient or as I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is, but it doesn't give your body quite the right signals to produce the milk, but it does give at least some. It helps. So I was doing that. We also did a lot of looking up of pace feeding. There's a YouTube video that my lactation consultant showed me that is incredibly helpful. She visually and verbally explains the pace feeding, and I really do well when I have both. And she does a really good job of explaining it, but I don't know how to link videos, so I can't link the video. And I don't know how to pronounce her name, because it's really kind of long and has like a lot of consonants in it. But if you search on YouTube for pace feeding, I think it's the first one that usually comes up in the search. But if you just get the one that has the really long, confusing name for pace feeding, and I'm sorry if the person is watching and they're insulted, I am so sorry. I'm just really bad with names. But they do a really good job of showing you how to do it. And I highly recommend it, because pace feeding is everything. I mean, pace feeding is a way of feeding them the bottle that more closely mimics the breast, because what they've discovered is actually it's not nipple confusion. It's that for lack of a better way of saying it, because it's really not a good way of saying it, but for lack of a better way of saying it, the babies get lazy. They're really not lazy. It's actually a really bad way of saying it, but I don't have another way to say it. But they're used to, the bottle just kind of drips into their mouth. They don't even have to suck on it if they don't want to. It's slower that way, but they don't even have to do that. They can just let the bottle do all the work. And breastfeeding takes a lot of work, even for the baby, and so the pace feeding mimics that. And so the baby then doesn't prefer the bottle because it's easier. You also need to use the slowest flow nipple you can find. We personally liked the Advent bottles, and we used I think it was the Preemie, I think it's called. I think that was it. But it was the zero. So like on the Advent bottles, they have like a number on it to show you what the nipple size is. So it's actually like on the nipple, and this was a 0. I know a lot of people like the Dr. Brown's. I've seen those highly recommended. They're also supposed to be really good for colic. My daughter did not like those. She likes the wider nipples, not the smaller ones. We were hoping she would like those because they are supposed to help with colic, but she just would not take them. Does mommy's finger taste good? Yeah? Okay. You're happy, so I'm not complaining. So pace feeding and the right size nipple is incredibly important. If I let someone feed her and they didn't pace feed properly, they just didn't understand it, or I forgot to mention it to them, or what have you, it would take a couple feedings before she was back to, oh right, I know how to do this. This isn't that frustrating. It's okay. You take a couple steps forward, you take a couple steps back. So pace feeding is really important. But also a tip that I didn't find out until a little further on, your pump output is not indicative of your supply. A lot of women don't even respond to pumps at all, actually. But if you are a woman who responds to a pump, I do. I can pump and it works. But it's not as efficient as my baby. No pump is as efficient as a baby. And so no pump is going to remove as much milk as your baby. So whatever you pump is not necessarily what you actually have in there. From what I understand, now I'm not a trained lactation consultant, but from what I understand from talking to lactation consultants and doing a lot of research on my own, the average pump output, if you are replacing a feeding, so someone is bottle feeding your baby. Is that coughing or is that fussing? I think it was a combination of the two. Okay, but you're fine. If you are replacing a feeding, so someone else is bottle feeding your baby while you are pumping, the average output is about 3 ounces, and that's both breasts combined. The average, if you've just nursed and then you pump, is about an ounce and a half with both breasts, not individually. That's both breasts combined. So if you're not getting 6 ounces and you're like, oh my God, I'm not producing it, no, you're fine. A breastfed baby also only needs 1 to 1.5 ounces per hour that they've gone without nursing. So like if, say your baby slept and took like a 4-hour nap, then they would need at very, very, very most 6 ounces. But even that is probably too much. Probably 4 ounces is fine. But a breastfed baby usually doesn't go 4 hours without eating. But yeah, so your baby, like, you should never have to give more than like 4 ounces to your baby. Oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't give you the remote because apparently you don't have to aim it at the TV like I thought you did. Okay, have your fox instead so that you don't mess up mommy's TV. I know, I took the remote away. I'm sorry. Hang on, I'm going to pause. Okay, read your book. Tried giving her the remote to play with, because I thought it didn't work unless you actually pointed it at the TV. But apparently it does, because she just did something on TV. I have to figure that out later. But anyway, so formula, you have to keep upping the, not dosage. I can't think of the word I want. So we'll go with dosage, but that's not the right word. But hopefully you all know what I mean. But you have to keep upping it because it's the same thing. It's this, like, it has the same calories. It has the same, like, all the nutrients are the same. But breast milk will change for what your baby needs. So if your baby's sick, it will up the antibodies. If your baby needs more calories because they've started being more active, your breast milk will give it more calories. So you don't need to up it. Your baby will never need more breast milk simply because they're bigger now. It's all based on how long they have been since they've nursed. And most babies, there are exceptions to this rule. I'm sorry, are you getting frustrated that your book's not open? There you go. Most babies will continue to eat even if they're not hungry. And if it doesn't take them 20 minutes to eat a bottle, they won't recognize that they're not hungry either. But most babies will also just continue to eat and eat and eat and eat if you just keep putting things in their mouths. So all those times that, you know, your grandmother-in-law or what have you is, you know, giving them a bottle of breast milk and then they're like, oh, well, I gave them another bottle because they sucked it right down. Well, that's actually really bad, first of all, because they're going to throw it up. But second of all, like, that will just stretch their little tummies and make them really uncomfortable, and it makes it so that you will have a harder time keeping up, because if they consistently do that, then the baby will start looking for more and more milk, even though they don't really need it, and then you will have to up your supply even more to ridiculous amounts. So yeah, so don't up your milk bottles based on, oh, my baby's growing, I have to up it, because it's not the same as formula. So my routine, what I did, and it's the only thing that worked, because I tried all the supplements, and I'll get to that in a minute, and I didn't try all the supplements, but I tried a fair amount of them, and I tried lots of different techniques and everything, but what I found that worked for me, and this might not work for you because everybody is different, but what worked for me personally is 2 things.